All right. Episode 15.
Benny's on the ocean.
Oh, yeah. Benny's oceanfront. Only one air horn today. We are episode 15 with Chris Brown talking about pizza today and construction. What permits it? We try to make engineers accessible to the small project market. Check out the website where you can get a price on your MEPs in seconds. And today we're going to be talking about coordination with the owner this time. A lot of folks have been wondering from the owner rep, the owner side of things, what does it look like? Because we've been talking to the contractors, the trades, the architects, the developers, all of those folks. And there's just such a major, again, the idea here is we're talking about coordination. And the way I started is to say everybody knows it's important, but then when things go hairy,
right,
everybody's like, somebody else should have done this part, and everybody has a different opinion on what coordination should be done by different trades, and everybody has different contracts or scopes, and it gets, I'm sure you've been in the middle of all types of craziness, so I guess we can start there. What does that mean to you, coordination and construction?
Well, I will say one thing that ties us all together is I think we all just call each other idiots. It's always someone else's fault. Someone else did it wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah, coordination is really the hardest part. And I think the best thing you can do is to have someone you trust, to work with someone that you've done it before. The new people is what, you get. You have a lot of contractors that just have the wrong personality, the wrong outlook, and they just say, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. And it just makes it hard from the beginning. And so you got to get the right people.
Yeah, that's a big one we've talked about. The first one we did with Stuart Evans, he talked about trust hurdles. Mm-hmm. He's a GC. So he's constantly having to jump over trust hurdles with people because it's just, I guess, everything's dynamite, in construction. And right. Same thing. I mean, when things get hairy, we are involved with the design with you, say early on in the kickoff meeting we're about to have with the project we're working with you on, and then through design. And then when it hits construction, we don't really hear until there's an RFI.
Oh, right.
It's like, wait. Okay, which means, some sort of change order is on your lap. If an RFI is coming our way, they're like, wait, let me ask this question because that's going to change my scope. So we have been, our primary motivation for this tour is to try to solve, at least from our perspective, understand everyone else's perspective, what we should be doing better and where we should be spending our time, where we should be spending our time, that kind of thing. And really everybody has a different opinion, but trust has been a repeating motif.
Right.
For sure, a team that you can trust.
And I think what blew me away was when we started our Benny's 12 years ago, is there are a lot of people that don't pay their bills. And that has never been us. We've paid every bill we get. And so I think that's part of the problem. You'll see a lot of contractors that sort of push you in directions or just any partner. And you're like, wait, we pay our bills. What's the problem? It's because they don't always get paid. So I understand why a lot of it does get dicier.
Especially at the very end, a home run.
Yeah.
Little things are being asked, and then
pay when
you get your CO.
Our favorite, pay when paid.
Yeah. Well, all the industry's crazy. I always talk. This is a little bit side world, but we brought up all the contracts are pay when paid. So if somebody doesn't get paid, then you're like, wait, am I going to get paid? And it's a weird thing because there's no bank in the world that would underwrite that way.
Right.
Like, hey, you know what? Whenever you get paid, just go ahead and make your loan payment.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just crazy. Because, architects' fees might be $50,000, $60,000, or for larger projects, they can get to the millions. It's a huge loan to just give to somebody with zero, recourse.
That's very true.
Other than the courts. Like, you don't have an asset under that you can go grab. Like, hey, can I get your house if you don't pay? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's weird to me. But yeah, so trust. Tell us a little bit about that. So I know we dove straight into it. And for those that are listening, apologize for not the introduction. Here we're with Chris. He's from Benny's. Give us a little backstory and first brick and mortar and how you guys started to scale out.
All right. So Benny's Pizza, we started 12 years ago in Blacksburg at Virginia Tech.
Blacksburg.
Yeah. Yeah. Zach, my partner, Zach, and I were at Tech. We both graduated in 2006, went out. He went to DC. I went to New York for a few years. I actually have a degree in interior design, so I worked for a big architecture firm for a while. So I knew the construction, the design side of everything. And we went, and then after about 4 years of working, for the man, working for big businesses, we came back and said, let's do something ourselves. And we knew Blacksburg really well. So we're like, this one thing that Blacksburg does not have is they've got 16 bars downtown, but they don't have any late night food. So how do what can we do? And we had a business plan for Benny's put together, and we're like, let's just go down and try it. And, we were building it with like I always say, Fisher Price tools. Like we had nothing. We were down there in flip flops, just like knocking walls down and using hammer and nails and going on Craigslist, buying everything, the most used, beat up, cheapest piece of equipment. And so we built this little pizza spot, and it was like really sad looking inside if when I think back about it. But within a month, we were packed every single night. People didn't care. Students, they're like, I don't care what it looks like inside. I don't care about the decor.
This giant slice of pizza right now.
Cheap,
Yep.
giant slice
$3 for a giant ass piece of pizza that was just delicious.
Yeah, late night. I mean, it was crazy. So it was really successful the first one, and then we just started. We're both sitting there like, all right, we got one little pizza spot. What should we do now? Let's do another one. Let's do another one. We just kept going from there, and so we never really planned on having. We're at 31 stores right now, 2 under construction. So we never really planned on that kind of growth. We're like, let's just play by ear, like live in the moment and see where we go next. And we were able to do about 3 stores a year, and we try to keep the same contractors, the same architects, try to keep the same design, all the different towns in Virginia, JMU, UVA, but then regular downtowns like Roanoke, Norfolk. We just kind of grew anywhere there's a good downtown with the bar scene. That's where we try to go.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So how easier said than done is it to go to that many stores from your first?
There's like inflection points, and I'd say the first 3, because Zach and I were both there in the area, it was pretty easy to go to 3. It was going to 5 when starting to go 2 hours away from where we live. JMU was 2 hours, and it was really hard to get there in a day and get back. And so that's when we had to bring on like a regional manager. A friend of ours wanted to jump on, and he just started doing it. And then we had 5 stores, and we had to do payroll. We're trying to build stores and doing payroll. So then I had to get a payroll person. My mom jumped on, and she's been doing payroll ever since. And so it's like you just hit these points where you kind of outgrow the infrastructure of your business. So you got to grow that part, and then move on to you can't have 3 more until you bring in another person to handle operations or, the food side of it, make sure all the food is right. Our partners with the food that we get is great. They've been our partners from the beginning, so it makes it all very easy.
Are you the construction wing pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much. Design, construction, that part of it.
Yeah, a lot of partnerships I've noticed that way. Monument Development's that kind of way. Tom's like construction. Yeah. Chris is underwriter, finance or whatever. But there's just somebody has to be dedicated to thinking about construction, because that stuff doesn't just show up without somebody who's been through it and learned those lessons, taking those licks. I guess you've already been at the architectural firm, so you already familiar with the process of RFIs and submittals and stuff. Yeah.
And I enjoyed it too. I loved the design part of it. I thought construction was fun. I mean, Zach did too. Like, we love building it. We still love building the stores. That's why people say, why don't you, we started franchising. They're like, why don't you just jump into that? Why are you still building your own stores? It's like, well, we still enjoy it. We're still having fun.
Yeah. So hoods is a big one for us in the mechanical and consulting world. And my usual advice for folks is, especially a restaurant that wants like a 50-foot hood, that's maybe their first time. So backing up a little bit before I get into that, is a motif that's been repeated on these conversations is the risk the owner brings to the construction team, whether they are experienced or not. Like, their expectations are hard to manage if they've never done construction. So you have the benefit of already having been in the industry and then done this.
Yes.
And now you've done this many projects, so you're now seasoned. But a lot of restaurants, they're the first restaurant they're opening, and they just want this 50-foot hood, and that is expensive. As you know, you got to take all that air out, and you got to dump it all back in, and it can create a very hot kitchen, very wet, damp environment. And I always tell people the probability of success of your restaurant is directly proportional to the length of your hood.
That's funny.
The longer it gets, the less likely it's going to be.
That's funny.
That you're going to be able to afford the HVAC you need for that. And I was like, look at like Chipotle, they got a 10-foot hood in there, and they can crank out a lot of money. Right. So I try to get the chef to be creative. Like, if you had to, make that hood smaller. Like, that's how you get your HVAC cheaper. So you've done 30 some stores now.
Yep.
How is the HVAC?
Oh, HVAC. I mean,
jeez,
it is difficult. It's such a big part of the project, and no one can ever agree on it. We own some of our buildings, but usually we have landlords. Landlord's like, oh no, you just need 6 tons. And we're like, no, we don't. The oven itself takes 3 tons just to have an oven in here.
Yeah.
And then you got to cool the rest of the space. And sure, maybe 7-8 tons will work for 9 months of the year, but then you get to July, and it's hot as hell in here, and like people are angry, the staff's getting mad. They're like, we kind of set a rule that if the temperature goes above 93 degrees, we close the store. We don't want people working in that, because it's just miserable. Crazy.
I'm glad you said that because that does happen, especially
Yeah.
here. And it's not just 93 degrees, it's also all that moisture and all that because you have to make up all this air.
Yeah.
You got another rooftop unit somewhere that's bringing in a lot of that. And that moisture is just getting dumped in here.
Right.
And you mentioned peak season. And I always tell people, you may have even heard me say this to you, but it's like you can be as comfortable as you can afford. And
Yeah.
that the code doesn't care if you're uncomfortable. It's not illegal
That's
to
true.
be uncomfortable. And so we have to like, that's the management of expectations. But you've had all these stories, with a 93-degree day, and other people are like, oh, let's just, less tonnage. I'm like, okay. Or another one, if you reduce some of the features, like you can take some staging or Carrier makes this nice unit with a humidizer. It's like a dehumidification cycle
Okay.
that's in it. And it's pretty cheap to get it. It's like a standard package rooftop unit, and it comes with it, and it helps keep that under control without going full DOAS or something like that.
Yeah.
But people want to get the cheaper version from that. I'm like, I mean, it costs money to save money. You're gonna have a very uncomfortable interior space, and they say, no, we'll do it. And then what do you know? The first week that it's in August, I get the
right.
call, the engineer fucked up my design.
It's your fault. Yeah.
And it's just so hard to consult. I'm just glad you said that. That's a real experience.
Yeah, yeah, and we often think like we could add on a little mini split if we need to in a certain area, but it's just so nice to get two medium-sized units on a roof. It's not hard, and it gives you some wiggle room. If one goes down, you still have at least enough cooling to keep it in the 80s. We've done giant units before where they got to get a crane and put on top, but that is very expensive, and it's so impossible to schedule that. Talking about coordinating everyone to be able to get a crane there at the right time to put it on the roof and hook it up, and the permitting, it's a nightmare.
That is okay. So that's interesting to walk us through that coordination. You're talking about coordinating just a crane to get a piece of HVAC equipment on the roof.
Yeah, just the crane, because I think it's like $1,000 for the crane for the day. But then you've got to get with the city to make sure the sidewalks can be closed, because then they have certain times when they can't be closed. And then you got to make sure you have the people there to help coordinate it.
Yeah.
To bring the delivery. Like, delivery has to be right at the right time. I guess you could try to schedule it to be in a warehouse for a little while, but it's just so difficult. And then when that unit, and we did this in Pittsburgh, and then that unit died after, it made it 8 years. And now we got this giant piece of metal on the roof.
Oh man, now you got to get it replaced somehow.
Yeah, well, or we'll just leave it. I don't know what we're going to do with it.
You got to go through that whole process to get it down.
To get it down, yeah. And I don't want to repair it because I'd rather have two smaller units,
Yeah.
So you're kind of stuck when you go for something that big.
What's small in that world? Like a tonnage?
Oh, I would say like 4.
Yeah.
4 tons you could do without a crane, unless it's high. But yeah, sometimes a lift you could do it with.
What does the HVAC look like on the place that works the best for you? Like the comfort of it,
Yeah, I would say that some of the bigger buildings we're in, like in town centers, like in Virginia Beach, has a town center where it's like a 20-story building, and so I honestly don't even know where the HVAC is. I just know
coming from a magical place.
and it feels great. And
Set the thermostat and it works.
the landlord says they'll take care of it. So it's like that's the best scenario.
I would imagine they may have a DOAS.
Yes.
And so that helps because a lot of that makeup air can come from a DOAS or some sort of central unit that can handle high volumes of air, and that's probably why. And when we say DOAS, especially in the light commercial market, Permits, we're trying to make MEP engineering accessible to small projects. It's like our thing. We're trying to be there because no engineer really wants to stay there, and so we're trying to scale that and make it accessible. So in that like commercial market, when we say DOAS, everybody freaks out. It's like a cuss word. Like, what did you just say to me? Like it's a 4-letter word. So
they're expensive, right?
Yeah. Oh, they can. Yeah. Well, because they have all the extra features you need to give you that kind of comfort you described. It can bring in all that extra outside air and bring it in nice and dried out. Now, Captive Air makes a Paragon unit, and that thing is you get it in 2 weeks. It's got like low lead time. It's rated for 100% outside air. It's like ready to basically plug and play. And they do their own commissioning and startup, and it's just beautiful. And we've been looking at trying to get that on more projects. It's not that much more when you consider the cost of delay from all the other kind of weird things that happen if you try to Frankenstein an HVAC.
Right.
To work. It's like day one, it works. It's on schedule, low lead time, maybe a little bit more expensive day one cost, but it works.
See, I think that's if you have someone that not that you're certifying it, but you really stand behind a product like that is really comforting. I'd be willing to pay more for that because it's like you believe in it, and then if it goes wrong, you're gonna look bad. So you're like, no, I'll make sure it's right. So it's kind of nice if someone suggests something, like if the contractor, engineer, or whoever says this is what we use, this is the best thing, I'll believe it and I'll pay more for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess up to an extent. For
yeah, right. That makes sense. Yeah, 20% is about the max.
Yeah, we got realistic limitations.
Yeah, these gold-plated copper conductors for your paint
Right.
behind the wall that you'll never see are really
That's
good.
great.
My wife's a chef, so she always gives me shit because I'm talking about all my woes of restaurant design, and nobody wants to buy the right equipment. She's like, whatever. You don't have any calluses on your finger. You're just sitting there type all day. She's used to working in 95-degree kitchens and all that. But I guess a lot of chefs are too. But I don't know.
Right.
At some point, it really is just unbearable.
Well, yeah, and like that first store in Blacksburg, we didn't have AC. We had 2 little window units.
Oh God,
dude, it was awful. It would get so hot, but I don't know how we made it work, but it was just part of the culture. Like you just knew when it was hot, you'd be hot, and you kind of laugh about it, and you kind of, and then I don't know, if you do that to your staff, you got to make it up somewhere else. And so, like you can't give them all shitty stuff. You got to pay them more. You got to give them some other perks. Take them out to dinner more often. Yeah. But if you have to go with the shitty environment, you just make it up elsewhere.
I mean, there's something legendary about like that kind of place to be working at too. That's like the stuff of like a cool indie film, place to be working. There's just a lot of
the icon. Yeah.
I mean, at Benny's, every time we talk about it, at least if they're from Blacksburg, everybody knows what's up.
This is awesome. I've been there so many times, completely sober after a couple waters, out.
Yeah, sure. It's people.
Yeah. Just get the pizza on just 2 paper plates. It's nothing fancy, but it's the best pizza ever.
That's the best. Like when they come in during the day, they're like, wow, this is even good sober. Gosh.
It's a good compliment.
Yeah.
So what is your line? Is it a pizza oven and you just crank on that?
Yeah, it's a Blodgett 2 double stack. We got a 7.5 or 8 foot hood. We usually get 8x5s because they're easiest, and that's it. We have a couple stores where we did a second oven next to it. Yeah, but it's like you said, you're getting a bigger hood. Now you're at 12 foot, and
everything gets really expensive really quick on the HVAC
because
all that air.
Yep, because you got to do it on the HVAC side, so it's just everything. More stainless, bigger gas line. It's just a lot more work.
Yeah, and I guess the hard thing to describe to somebody that's not used to it is just to understand when you're taking out that much air. It's like turning on a giant industrial fan in a summer day and just blasting it back into your building because that's the makeup air, and that's got to be treated somehow.
Yeah, I think our store in Michigan, they made us condition it, and that sucks. That is so expensive and so useless most of the time. Sometimes it's good to be conditioned, but you're in Michigan.
The makeup air that came into the front of the plenum there.
Yeah.
You can put little condensers or compressors on there.
That's what they required that.
Do you feel that cold air when they're cooking, or does it all just get sucked back into the hood?
You feel it, and it's usually uncomfortable. Usually, I don't want cold air blowing on me. In front of this oven, but no, I mean, it all gets sucked up right away. It's like it doesn't change the temperature of the space. Yeah, because with the energy code, at least in DC, it's been stricken from the Virginia code for now, but requires there to be transfer air. At least 50% of that hood has to come from the adjacent space as transfer air. Got it. So let's say it's 75 degrees coming in. Well, if you're in front of 100 degrees, it's going to feel like air conditioning to you. True. And it'll just come in from the transfer. So you're supposed to put most of it here and get the free cooling effect from the transfer over. That isn't enforced in Virginia yet. I don't know if the new code cycle has changed that. It was stricken from the energy code, but that is going to make things a little more expensive for people. Well, yeah, I mean, air balancing is always a very difficult part of the project. It's always a problem at the end. Things aren't balanced right. Certain cities or towns are really strict about it. Some don't care at all. Yeah. Yeah. Do you, how does the hood commissioning and testing, do you work with Captive Air? Do they do that startup for you? Yeah, they've done it most of the time. We've got a few contractors out in the other half of the state that could do it for us without they go through Captive Air. But yeah, Captive Air it's great. They do the drawings for you. They just send it. They have like a 2-week lead time right now. It's not bad. Yeah. Yeah. Their equipment is flying off. So the Paragon unit, which is a DOAS, it's just, they're slinging those things, man. It's crazy. They got a factory. Well, it's great too, because like the inspectors will just take it. If you get a stamped drawing from Captive Air, they're like, we're good. Yep. It's covered. Yeah, we had I was in Chicago at the ASHRAE convention, talking to one of the guys that sells that Captive Air stuff, and
I had to get them before 11 a.m. because after that time, we weren't sober enough to podcast.
That's great.
Yeah, the ASHRAE, the engineers get a little wild. There's 70 or 80,000 engineers out there. It's crazy.
Man, yeah, we got the Vegas Pizza Show in 3 weeks.
Oh, what's that like?
Oh my God, that convention center in Vegas is ridiculous, and they fill it up with like every type of pepperoni, tomato sauce, chicken wing, just box. I mean, you have like 5 different booths of just pizza boxes, and it's just wild. And then of course it's a food industry thing, so everyone just goes out really hard every night.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was when you go there. I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, engineers, and then like 6 a.m. at the airport, everybody's already hitting like some mixed drinks. I'm like, all right,
that's right. It's vacation.
I guess I'll try to live through this. I'm too old for this right now.
Yeah, we try to keep it 2 nights because 3 we're dead.
Yeah, I can't hang like that anymore, man. I used to record, like I told you, and I had to stop just so I could stay alive.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Now I'm an engineer, But so you got 1 to 30. So how many? 32?
31 open and 2 under construction.
Okay, cool. So how about what is it like coordinating? Just like you got the contractors and everybody on board, but then there's this lease agreement stuff that happens. Like what kind of complexities come into play with that?
Yeah, the lease is it's like one of the least favorite parts of the whole process. But we kind of have like a boilerplate layout of what we want to be added into the lease and what we'd like for the landlord to provide. They usually push back on it. Sometimes they don't. And, it's just like another big negotiating tool for the price of the space, what they could add for the tenant improvement money, if they're doing the AC, if they're doing the plumbing work, you kind of try to put in as much that's reasonable into the work order, just see what they give in on.
That could be, it seems like it could be challenging because the HVAC is so closely coupled to that hood. Do you have a standard spec? Is it like a square foot per ton type thing?
Yeah, we have a square foot the tonnage per square foot, but we also just kind of generally just say we need about 8 to 10 tons because we aim to be like 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. So we're always in about the same size.
Yeah, and you got an 8-foot hood generally, right?
Yeah, 8-foot hood.
Yeah. Those actually can work.
Yeah.
Once they get a lot bigger than that, it starts to go crazy quick.
Yeah, no, I believe it. We've had to remove them. Like we've gone into spaces that had a 12-foot hood, and we're like, no, we're taking that down and doing an 8 because we don't want to deal with whatever you have to fight with on it.
We'd have fun with the extra one here.
This one, I know. Well, yeah, this will be an interesting project on this one. We'll see if it works.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a couple more of these electrical mini splits to throw in there.
Gosh, I don't know. And it gets hot here.
Does
gets
it?
Hot. Yeah.
It already gets hot?
Well, it's like the thing. You get these big windows behind you, and that after like 3 p.m. in the summer is blazing. So I put tint on the window, which the tint actually helps. You can't really see. It's like the lightest tint, but it really did help.
Yeah. I always recommend solar shades or something to help with the glazing. A lot of people, this is another thing that they'll say, oh, you didn't do your solar shade. You didn't do your solar calculations, but we did. It's just that the sun is a giant nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't really fight that much, but the solar shades is the best way to do that. Just stop the radiation from coming in at all.
Right.
And then you're left with more like the radiant heat or the, what is it called? Convective heat.
Yeah.
In this space.
There was our Raleigh project. We thought it'd look good. There's this old awning on it. And we're like, let's get rid of that. We'll open it up, make it look good. And then we realized after we opened why they had it on it. We're like, shit, we need to add something.
Let's put that back. Let's put it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. There's a reason cats and dogs lay in the sun.
Yeah, that's right.
We were outside earlier. It's like 30 degrees outside. And as soon as we got to the sun, closer to the water, it was immediately warmer.
And then you get smacked with that wind from off the ocean.
Yeah.
And then the sun goes away.
Can you at least open the, I guess that thing looks like it opens, so you get a little something.
Yeah, it's about like, I don't know, 2 months a year we could open the windows.
Yeah.
In the summertime, the doors are probably just open all the time too. People coming in and out.
Yeah.
All the infiltration.
Yeah, we've done the air curtains before, but it's just another thing. I mean, they're actually really easy to install, but it's just like another thing to worry about.
Yeah. Really, it's the air balance you're talking about. If you have any level of negative pressure and these doors are constantly open, then you're just bringing all that beautiful, hot, humid beach air in here and having fun with it. It's hard to describe. Engineers aren't the most gifted. We've been talking about this. We're not the most gifted social creatures. So to try to like describe what we're trying to explain is challenge. Like, well, all the moisture content in the air, doesn't go well.
I mean, moisture is a big thing. Like these mini splits, a lot of them have the pumps to pump the water out.
Yeah.
We will never again install a mini split with a pump on it because the pumps fail. They just fail all the time.
Oh yeah.
And when they fail, the whole unit just stops working. It's like, and it's flooded. And all it takes is just a gravity feed. It's all you need.
Yeah.
And you could actually see on this one, like a crazy feed I have going along the top of I spent like hours on it trying to get just the right drop level. So
that right there,
that snake that goes around the whole space.
Yeah.
It's like at exactly like an inch all the way around. So it can go right to the sink.
Yeah, because gravity, unless the sun were to just die suddenly, it'll stick around, or the earth, I guess.
Well, and then we like drips. When it's not done right, you have drips. So, you get the call every week, like, oh, it's dripping again. I'm like, oh, put a little bucket out there and say it's a water feature. Do something clever with it. Put a plant underneath it.
Yeah. Any moving parts that can fail or just is not fun. And that's exactly why I try to go for this Paragon unit. I go back to that. I'm not getting a kickback from Captive Air. It's just because it's simple.
Yeah.
It removes parts and pieces. Like you can on that design, you have one exhaust on the hood and you don't make up air to that. You just make it up to the space.
Yeah.
And you bring in the outside air to that machine, bring it in at 55, which is their traditional leaving temp for like an air conditioner. And so the makeup air is the air conditioner for the space. You don't need a makeup air fan and an air conditioner. It's all happening with one piece of equipment. So one point of failure, Captive Air has great service. You also can access it remotely from your phone and do troubleshooting. There's just so much there compared to the value engineer option of 1,000 different little split systems and stuff.
Oh my
little pumps, things that can go wrong, and it just becomes this maintenance nightmare and usually leads to delay in construction because there's more coordination.
Yes.
Challenges and trying to make all that stuff fit.
Yes.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. No, like trying to keep it all simple is such a big part of it.
How many buildings do you have where you've had to perform a miracle to get your Type 1 exhaust out of the building?
Oh man. That's it's the Raleigh one was a weird one because they said we got approved to vent out the front of the building, but they said you can't blow the air down because it'll blow off old ladies' wigs. And you can't aim it up because water gets in. So I'm sitting with the guy, I'm like, how the fuck do I do it? I can't go down, I can't go up. What do you want me to do?
Sideways. And
he wouldn't answer me. The guy was such an asshole. And so we like walked down the street with him and I was like, how about that? He's like, oh yeah, you could add these little strips of metal on the louver. So it goes down, but then shoots back up. And that's like the way around it. So I had to fabricate these louvers and that one was really annoying. There's a lot of politics involved with certain things like that.
Yeah.
The one in Michigan was crazy. They made us go up all the way up the building and on top of the roof. And that was something that like, it was when we put in for the drawings, they didn't have that code in there about how it needs to be vented. And then a building burned down. Some old restaurant burned down because of the hood grease fire or something. And so right then they put on this really strict hood rules.
Mm-hmm.
And it was while we were in like the process of getting approved, and then they changed it on us and they made us, it was like $75,000 we had to add to the project that we didn't see coming. And we're like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's crazy. What is that? What kind of night of sleep do you have when you find that out?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's not a night because you're fighting it for 2 weeks. Like you're just trying to do something to not get it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The glory of coordination issues that come up.
Yeah.
That's a good, politics is an interesting one because that's there. It's there even just between, your engineer and your contractor, but then there's the jurisdiction. We had Charlie, who works at Baker Development Resources.
Yeah.
We talked to him and he's kind of like a permit fixer kind of guy in Richmond. He just like, they call him Mr. Richmond, he knows everybody. And he's like the excellent, never says anything the wrong way, is very polite, respects everybody and kind of gets things done.
Yeah.
Weird, magical, there's always that kind of guy.
Right.
I'm not that guy. An engineer like pisses somebody off because I say something stupid because I didn't know it was stupid to say. but that part, dealing with the HJs and coordinating, how much do you feel like you have to navigate that, or do you trust the permitting process?
Yeah, I try to never trust the permitting. But Richmond was actually, that was another good example of, we went into an existing kitchen and we were moving the hood. We were moving the hood about 20 feet to the front. And so we were trying to do our best to not have to change, do a full set of drawings. And the city was trying hard to say that because you're doing all this change, you've got to do a full set, add architects, engineer, all of it in there. And so we were able to, that took a lot of going down to that office and in the downtown and just like sitting there talking to them and saying like, here's the drawing. I did it by hand. And they're like, well, I guess it's this simple. Then there's like all these like kind of rules you could find out in Richmond. You just ask them. It had to be in person. You can't do it on the phone. They don't answer. You had to sit there and wait till 4:00, and everyone around you sitting there pissed off. It's just like kind of a miserable place to be. But when you get in front of someone who calls the shots, they could tell you what they want to see.
Yeah, that's good. Just being patient. It's like waiting out of the in the front of the monastery, waiting to get into.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I mean, it's ultimately a person. It's a people thing.
Yeah,
that's what Cliff talked about a lot.
It's a people. Yeah. Yeah.
It all comes down to people problems, not always technical problems. And that's why engineers are really bad at that.
Yeah.
We want to just solve it with math or something. And it's really, at the end of the day, usually just a people thing.
Right. No, we had some engineers we worked with in the past, and they're just like, it was kind of, I guess everyone kind of feels like their job's the most important. And this one set of engineers was like that, where they just wouldn't respond to you. They were like, I did my part. And they're like, no, they're wrong. This is how it is. I'm like, man, I'm talking to them and they're saying something different. Like, can we all get on the same page and try to figure this out? And so, yeah, the people side of it, coordinating everyone's egos and their preferences. And it ultimately comes down to like, what does the city want us to do?
There's the elephant in the room between the trade and the engineer, like the secret rivalry.
Yeah.
Like we were with Jacob on where were we at?
Norfolk or Railroad?
Birdies?
Birdies.
Portsmouth?
Yeah, a golf place.
There's a cool place. Anyway, I was there. We were on site. We were doing the podcast, and the electrician was there. He's like, "Oh, your podcast." We're in his way. Like, hey, yeah. He's like, "What are you guys talking about?" I'm like, "Well, I'm an engineer." And then before I could finish it, he's like, "Oh, I fucking hate you, engineers." Shit, I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah, you need us.
He's like, "Yeah, you think you're so smart because you got your 4-year degree and all this." And that's when I realized, like, I've never thought that myself. I've never felt that. I've always personally really leaned on the trade because of their experience and understanding how things actually get built.
Right.
And it's always my blind spot. I know what's happening right here, but if I were to try to give guidance on the best way to do it, it would sound like an idiot. I read the code all day.
Yeah.
I know how the moisture stuff works and all that.
Well, I mean, it's got to be really difficult for you too, because you're just national. You could go anywhere with your setup, with your business. So to know like what local authorities want, some of these tradesmen, they've known them for years, and they know exactly what they want to see. And you can say, well, that's not the code, but reality, that's what they need to get past.
Yeah. So that trust hurdle with the trade early on is what we like to do. I try to encourage as much as possible during the design process, having whoever is going to be working with them, at least at the GC level, if you have that person, to be like, hey, I'm Kenny, introduce myself. I'm good at this. I'm bad at that. I trust you here to help give these kind of guidance to me, so that we can avoid the RFI that happens 3 months into construction that ends up causing a nightmare of things that you got to probably sort through,
And I think that is when you talk from the beginning about like our perspective as the landlord, or sorry, the owner, or even the tradesman, like you'll have this whole project and like you're kind of in the dark. You submitted your stuff, we're good. And then at that, 2 months later, we're like, we need this today. And you're like, well, fuck, I'm not open today. Like, I can't give it to you today.
Yeah, I'm playing Zelda right now.
And we're sitting there like, come on, this is all you got to do. Just change this one thing and sign it. And you're like, I'll get it to you. And so this one engineer was like, I'll have it to you in 2 weeks. So I was like, come on, dude, this is so easy. And that's where I think there's a big rift is the people of, they're waiting on you, and they're like, they don't know you. And they're like,
that's been a common motif through this tour, is that the most important thing people have said they want their engineers to be is accessible during that like CA phase. We do our designs pretty quickly up front, but we've kind of slowed that down and realized the importance of being available, leaving some free time in our schedule to be available for those CA tasks. It's like, hey, I need this tomorrow. We can't always do it because sometimes a simple question for us is really 2 weeks of work, but not always, and we've realized the importance of being available for that.
Yeah. And I mean, I get it. Like I've done it enough where I'm like, take your time. You know, I don't want to piss you guys off because I'm gonna need it. And I've done that before where I piss them off and then they're really slow.
They're like, oh yeah, you think I'm slow now?
Yeah.
Yeah, HJ's same thing. If you're trying to get a permit done and you piss them off, suddenly that permit seems to feel like it's on the bottom of the review pile.
Whoops, slides off the desk.
I think, I mean, aside from the fact that they already have schedules, this and that, I think at the end of the day, one potential root cause problem is that engineers just want to solve it with engineering. We imagine when you ask this question that there's 20 hours of work for us to get through this.
Yeah.
We forget that maybe just a phone call would make it a 15-minute task.
Right.
Like that, or I could at least walk you through why I think it's 20 hours of work. But man, that's crazy because this means that this equipment no longer is going to work. You're going to fuck up over here, this and that, which may help you redirect what you're asking in the first place.
True.
So that 15 minutes maybe becomes 30, but in our heads, we just think it's 20 hours of time. And so we say 2 weeks without even
get on it.
yeah.
In line.
And that's kind of, I think that's what engineers are doing.
Yeah, the contractors will propose a solution, which we really appreciate, but we'll immediately go to, will that solution work?
Yeah.
Instead of backing up to go, why are they asking for that solution? Is there something else that we could think of to help? What's the root cause of the question?
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, every problem's different. So it's like, it's not an easy answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be an HVAC question and the solution is an envelope shades.
Yeah.
So it happens a lot, building
right.
envelope solution versus a HVAC or change this or that, or
Then you got to look at the electrical too. How does that impact the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so that's at least what we've learned so far. Because like you like the picture you painted earlier of the rooftop coordination.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when it's like, hey, I got my crane booked for tomorrow. My permits are all lined up and I need this letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'm fucked.
Right.
Yeah.
Or slab. That happens with slab cover a lot of times. Like my plumber's about to walk off site. I need you to just approve the PEX versus the CPVC or whatever it is. Can you just help me out? Because they're going to demobilize.
Dude, yeah, the slab is the hardest part. They're in the floor. It's like, because when you do the floor, you got to kick everyone out for a few days.
Yeah.
It's just the hardest part to coordinate. I try to get the floor done in the beginning. Floor's done, cover it up with cardboard, do whatever you have to do, but that's out of the way.
Yeah. You mean like cutting the slab?
Cutting it, finishing it. Like if we're doing, we try to just do like a stained concrete, just get that done.
Oh, really? And then you'll just work on top of that?
Work on
the
top of
finished
it. Yeah.
look? Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Does it hold up, the little cardboard cover?
No, you get scrapes and scuffs everywhere, but it's worth it. It just
Yeah.
makes the project that much easier.
Yeah, that's a good point. And kind of the vibe too. Like we have these little lights that end up in our shots and stuff. Like whatever, it's the vibe. 'Cause
Yeah.
We can't bring boom arms everywhere.
Right.
It is what it is.
Oh yeah, we spilled an entire bucket of paint on one of them. It's like, oh, I guess that's the thing now.
Yeah, it's like Andy Warhol, right?
Yeah.
It's like the joke about Waffle House. It's like the dirtier the Waffle House, the better the food tastes.
Great. That's great.
Yeah, it's got to have a couple flies and a bacon.
Yeah. Somebody smoking cigarettes back there, whipping up your eggs.
Yeah,
Dude,
it's
that's
actually
actually
there. Yeah.
A couple of Newports.
Yeah, they're fighting out back in the parking lot.
It's funny. My kids love it. It's like their favorite restaurant is Waffle House.
That's
Best,
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they don't smoke cigarettes or anything.
Okay.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, that's. Are there any other parts during the construction like that are just peak stress coordination where it just starts to feel like a ticking time bomb of it all falling apart?
Every single project right at the end when you don't know when you're going to open. So opening, like building the restaurant's one thing, but then opening, like getting the operations going, getting the staff, getting the food, and getting like to actually be a business is as hard. And at the very end of construction, you're also trying to layer in this opening the business, hiring people. So you can't hire people too early because then they leave. You can't do it too late. You can't open. So you have these 12 people that you hire because you plan on opening in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You hire these 12 people. And then something comes up in construction, you can't pass the final. And then it's like, fuck, it's all right here. If I push this back 2 more weeks, I have to lose the entire staff I just started training.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like every single time it's right at that point.
Man, see, this is why we're doing this, because we're just learning so much about all these different perspectives and why that stress of like, call me, pick up the damn phone.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to figure out how can we be available and not every task is a 20-hour task.
Right.
It's genuinely when we pick up the phone, it ends up being a half-hour call. I mean, it's the solution to the problem. And then that saves you from losing 12 people.
Yeah. Pushing back.
That's crazy.
Because you're lining people up to get hotels. Like you have this whole like machine in the works and that's just held up because the inspector doesn't like something. And then in our heads, we're like, easy change. Go to the engineers, architects, whatever, and they're like, get you in a few days. You're like, fuck.
Yeah. I think that's part of, if I were to say on the other side of the equation, on the trade side, the trust hurdle needs to be on both sides of that, because we are reluctant to pick up a phone for somebody that feels like they're after us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When they have the vibe of, oh yeah, you better wait until I tell them I did it per the drawings, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it can get that way real quick. And if we start early on, just kind of setting expectations with the owner about, hey, here's how we approach the design. Here's the kind of things we know will expose you to some risk. If you want us to buy that down, we could put more into the scope of the services, but it's probably not going to be a big deal. You've done these before. You know what that means.
Yeah.
Like we've done a multifamily with Dotson before, where we didn't detail out the ductwork extremely perfectly. It's like, you can expect some like issues unless you want to pay like another $40,000 in services to perfect that on these 14 apartments. It's not worth it, for a couple grand worth of predictable change orders and that contingency. And so getting that on the same page with the trade and the owner, and get on the same page about how we're going to approach this thing, what it means we're going to uncover along the way, so that it doesn't end up being, we feel like we can't answer the phone because it's it's basically like they're salivating at the mouth type of vibe,
Yeah.
Not every trade contractor. I'm not sitting here throwing shade on trades, but that's what our perspective is, and why we also can be reluctant to answer. But if that trust is there first, it's like, oh yeah, let's pick up the phone, figure it out.
Yeah.
There's got to be a solution,
Well, and I think that is the difference between a lot of engineers or architects or even some tradespeople, is keeping costs in mind. And some engineers just don't. This doesn't even phase them. Mm-hmm. Whereas most tradespeople do. They're like, well, why would you do that? Because they're like, I could do this for a lot cheaper. Why would you do all this extra work? And so when everyone is on the same page, like, we want to make this the simplest, cheapest, and we know that it helps. It helps because we all feel like we're on the same page. Whereas you have an engineer or an architect that just throws in. I have some architects, but not ours, but like some of the landlords, architects that we work with, like the stuff they're proposing are ridiculous. And you're like, why are you doing it this way? We've done it a bunch of times, and like, change it to this, and it's just someone that's not on that same page of keeping it cheap and simple.
Or just completely don't even know. Like, we just have no clue sometimes how much the stuff is.
True.
To that we specify. We're like, wait, what? What did it? How much? Whoops, sorry about that.
We try to be, flexible though on our side. Like, that's the flip side of that. Sometimes we don't know, but if it gets brought up, like a Cliff or a Stuart brings it up, like, hey, I can do it this way, a lot cheaper, a lot better. We're like, yeah, I mean, if it's legal, we make sure it's legal. It's like, sure, go for it. You're the one that knows it way better than we do.
Legal enough.
Yeah. And you got the another one is churches. Stuart, he does a lot of churches or religious facilities, and they got these kitchens and stuff, and you can design HVAC as if they're going to be open like a restaurant is. But the reality is that the hood will be on for an hour, maybe, on a Sunday. Well, that's a completely different world. We're doing an Indian tribe right now. It's the same thing. Like, every once in a while, they'll use this commercial kitchen they have, but they'll turn the hood off, and then the HVAC system will have time to recover.
Right.
Versus something where you're open for a long period of time.
12 hours a day.
12 hours a day, and constantly needing to keep up with that space. And so that's another thing that engineers, if you have a good contractor that can tell you that, because that Stuart leveled me out. He was like, look, man, they're there for an hour a day. What are you talking about? They need all this. I was like, oh yeah, good point.
Right.
As long as they know that maybe during peak season, like you said, it could be uncomfortable. But the most important thing for me as an engineer then is making sure the building doesn't get rotted from the inside after. Like, as long as it can dry out after that peak season, then the investment's protected and I'm fine.
Yeah. So how would you ever know that? Like, we can't really expect engineers or architects to know the business and what's going to happen.
Yeah. And it's kind of what we're realizing. That's almost, you need to be a good engineer to kind of at least understand what's the expectation? What is the business? Like I said, the hood can be smaller. Like, the chef is designing. Most of the time, what I see is a chef get told. Yeah, right. They're like, hey, we're building you this kitchen at a country club. And then he says, oh, sweet. I mean, I can get this. And then we're told that's what the chef wants. And I'm like,
let's talk to the chef.
All right. Yeah, can I talk to that chef? I don't want to be disrespectful, but.
Talk about, HVAC being a response to the building, not the other way around.
Oh, yeah. So I was talking to my former CEO, Mike Matthews, where I was at Hankins and Anderson. They got bought up by Mason and Hanger. So he was saying, what if we just started, instead of a $1 budget, say, all right, if your budget is this for HVAC, that means you can buy this many tons. So your building should be designed to not exceed that many tons.
Oh, right.
not the other way around. Don't make me force the tonnage down based on limitation. Change the programming of what you're doing. That's why I say get the hood shorter, because that does that. But we're doing a hookah lounge right now, and they have this giant 2 stories worth of smoking. And I'm like, do you guys realize how expensive this is going to be? You're going to need like 3 DOAs to make this work. And I gave them the same thing. I was like, you need to, if what I'm specing is be over budget, then got to be serious about changing the programming.
Dude, I mean, that is a great point. And you know, it's like buildings were built, they weren't more than 16 feet wide because that's as big as a beam you could get in lumber. And nowadays, if you go over 12 foot, you've got to have steel posts instead of just wooden ones. So it's great to keep that in mind. And, you know, with renovations too, like if you want to add, you know, 1,000 square feet to a space, well, there's 1 unit. If you want to add 1,200, now you got to bump it up. So let's try to figure out how to do it. I mean, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
Shout out to Mike Matthews. I'm trying to get him to be a guest here too. But yeah, he has a lot of cool things like that, because he ran that. They were about 250 engineers, MEP firm, and then they got bought out by a larger firm. But so he was the CEO there. So he's got a lot of these interesting ideas, and that just hit me like, man, what a cool way to position it. It's like, okay, if you've already kind of set it in as 10 tons is your budget, then design your building to 10 tons.
I mean, and I think that the key to that is that HVAC is one of your biggest headaches forever. For the rest of your life as a business owner, it is. There it is. Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's what you fight forever, and it's what people, you know, your employees give you bad feedback about. It's just, so make sure that's right. That is like such a key element of design.
Yeah, and if you have to, go ahead.
I was about to say, we've done 15 of these, and you're the 15th person to say that that's the biggest thing. And also, what we were talking about the other day, it's the first thing to get VE'd, or feature reduction, as we'd say. It's the first thing on the chopping block, but it's also the first thing to get complained about and callbacks about. So
Such a big line item.
They're correlated.
It's a huge one.
Huge.
But I think people are being persuaded that it's true you can get it cheaper and have it be the same. It's just not. When it's cheaper, you're getting less stuff.
Oh yeah, you feel it.
Yeah, you know, you got 93 shutoff days or whatever. You know, you got
close for business,
stop production altogether. And so if we can change it to, you already got it figured out, being like that 12-foot hood's got to go.
Right.
You know, that's got to become an 8-foot hood. And I'm so glad that you said that before I brought that up, because I talk about them all the time, and you lived it. You know how that impacts you. And it's hard to, because I'm an engineer. I don't know. It's like, maybe I don't know what restaurants are like or whatever. I guess I don't. I mean, I only know what the HVAC equipment for them are, and how good, delicious they are to buy food from, and how my wife gives me shit because she does hard work and I draw pictures.
Keyboard warrior.
Soft hands.
Yeah,
got soft hands, brother.
I do some work at the house. But yeah, that's cool. I like that. I'm glad that this is why we wanted to have like somebody in your position that's been through this and seasoned and been through that coordination process, and as it's really reinforcing it. But as Carter was saying, another common motif is the first VE thing. Again, we require people to say feature reduction just to drive it home that it's a feature reduction.
Right.
And the first thing to get chopped and the first thing to be complained about day one.
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe there's a better approach, that tonnage limitation thing. It's like, if that's your budget, let's not. Okay, I'll do that, but we got to make some changes on what kind of load you have in the space. Otherwise, you're going to screw yourself up. Like conference rooms, like take a couple out. Those are big load areas.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff if it's office or in restaurants, the hood length, hookah lounges, the square footage of this, or glazing, how much glass is in a building.
Square footage, I mean, just in general, if you could have a 1,200 square foot instead of 15, take the smaller one.
Yeah, true.
You lose like 8 seats, but you know, when in our business is a lot of takeout. Doesn't really matter to us.
Yeah. So people just, I guess they come in here and go, is it window use?
No, not really.
Okay. Was it supposed to be like a little pull-up window or something?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, you could sit at it. You could open it. Just kind of feel open. So when people are walking down the street, it invites them in. So we like to prop open the doors, have the windows open, but it's rare that you could do that.
Yeah. Is it just a roof above us? Right.
Yeah, but it's tall. It's 20, 30 feet high.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang. Wow. They got the hood up.
Yeah.
He works fast.
Yeah, that's crazy. Live on site. This is pretty cool.
Yep.
So we
like a restaurant, like bar type of restaurant place we were at when they were doing work.
I know. Oh, so you mentioned the craziness of opening, getting the training, the staff, because one of our first episodes with Duke Dotson, we were actually sitting there.
Colonial Beach.
Place
we designed. Muse, Drifting Muse.
Drifting Muse, yeah. Pizza place.
Mm-hmm.
4 hours before they opened their their real opening. They'd already done the friends and family, like their staff is there.
Like painting the ceiling.
I didn't know this was happening.
Just to make it extra stressful for everyone.
Yeah. And she tried to play cool. And she's like, what the fuck, dude? Why did you schedule this shit?
Yeah.
And we're just sitting there drinking beers 4 hours before they go live. And only in hindsight now do I realize how insane that was. But it was a cool shot because you got a little bit of the act. For us, it was cool. I thank you to your patience for y'all.
No.
It was awesome.
It's great. I mean, look, there's nothing going on. It's February. Like, just it's good to have a little show in here.
Yeah, man.
People like to see it.
Yeah.
It's fun to get people behind the scenes of it all. So you got that weird transition between CO and occupancy. Man, that seems harder than a roof.
Oh yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst part.
God.
And and then it's like even when you get the CO, you think you're in the clear, but you're not. There's still so much after that.
Yeah, the punch list and things that are still have to be done, and then chasing down somebody to finish up this thing that, said we'll get it done, and then it's 3 weeks later.
Yeah, it's that, and then you're ordering food, things get broken, things don't show up, and it's just a nightmare.
You got scrimmage engineers because you feature reduced and.
It's kind of the goal. It's like, let's just get out of the architecture engineers side of it. Let's finish
operations.
Let's get to the finish line with them. Let's move on.
Is there somebody in your partnership that does the operations part? Like, or do you kind of?
We all do it. We kind of have a team that just works on all of it.
Yeah, the construction seems like such a full-time effort.
It is
easy, man.
It is. I mean, luckily we keep it very simple inside, very simple design. So
yeah,
it's easier construction than I think most full-service restaurants would be.
Have they gotten some chops on that, or they have previous construction experience? Your other partners, or
not usually, but they learn. They learn pretty quickly. You throw them right in the middle of it, and they learn.
Yeah, it's crazy, amazing, man. So this is pretty packed in the summer, I would guess, right?
Dude, outside here, you'll have a line going out. You have big boxes walking down on the beach, and people are on the beach like, "Where'd you get that from?" And it's really cool.
Nice.
On the beach, have people eating your pizza.
Oh, yeah.
It's a marketing spot. How long have you been here in this spot?
3 years now. I think 3 years. Yeah.
How quick did you get it set up?
Oh, I think a month or two. We didn't do any. Oh, I don't know if I should say it. We didn't do any design, any like permits or anything. Just kind of
hit the bleep.
Yeah.
The bleep button.
Okay, a little edit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was not true. We got all.
It's up in Michigan. You said Michigan, Pennsylvania. Did you guys start just going up north, or how did that come about?
Pittsburgh was a cousin of mine. Michigan was a cousin of mine. A buddy of mine did Charleston, South Carolina. So we're kind of in between that range. Pittsburgh to Charleston is what I usually say.
Climate is so much different out there.
It is. Charleston's tough. It's hot.
Yeah. And then I guess Michigan, it's cold. So
Freezing.
yeah, you just don't have to have much AC out there.
And that's when they required all this stuff. We're like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
We have a heater. We have this giant oven. It heats the space.
Oh yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. So we're heating. Yeah. This is like we have the opposite problem where it's killing us. Yeah. Yeah. And then you temper the air. I guess, do you do that on your makeup air fans? You put like a tempered air, like where you heat it up at least, or?
No, I try not to. Try to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah. But 8-foot hood is a lot easier to do.
Exactly.
Go back to that. When you're bringing in a 50-foot hood, that's just crazy shit. But well, yeah, man. And then on the expansion, before we wrap up, because we got about 5 more minutes.
Cool.
When you say that you went up in these different directions, is this like all in house? You franchise? I mean, how do you?
We franchise too, so we've got 4 franchises open right now.
Okay.
We got a few sold. We like to grow. Like I said, like we like to build our own spots, but we just can't reach certain markets. Like we have a guy who just signed for Tennessee. I can't get to Tennessee. So
yeah.
So that's what these markets that we're like, we didn't want a franchise. We didn't want to go down that route, but now we realize that people understand Benny's. They get what we're about. And so we could open it up to any other market someone wants to move into.
There's a lot of like architecture firms that specialize in like franchise architecture stuff. Have you looked into those kind of folks? I mean, we've worked with them before just on being brought into stuff, but I didn't know if there's.
I could see the benefit of it, but we had kind of already built that. Like I said, I had the design background. So we built the design book. We built
gotcha.
I'm in SketchUp all the time drawing stuff. And,
okay.
And we have office staff now that does it all. So we have everything we need, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so how about sourcing contractors? That must be crazy.
Yeah, it is. We have, Albert we've worked with him for a few times, and it's great when you have someone who could be national. Even if he doesn't do the project, he could at least put a quote together that's reasonable. Because you'll hear from, a lot of people like that franchise in another market, they have a friend that's a realtor. They have a friend that's an architect. They want to use all their friends.
Yeah.
Like, sure, you could do that, but here's a realistic what it should look like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He didn't he do a bunch of Taco Bells or something
Yep.
before? Yeah. So he
Still
knows like,
doing
how
them,
to
yeah.
sling them like in different states.
Yes, exactly. He has some horror stories. I think Arkansas was one where he's like, I'm never going back there. But yeah, he goes nationally. So
Yeah. I think it takes a special kind of crazy to do like that. Man, he's got some brass.
dude, he just built a from the ground up Long John Silver's.
Oh, yeah.
Out in Roanoke. Just ground up, just did it. I'm like, how the hell
He's like, yeah, it's just there now.
it's there now?
Man, they took a sheets down and built it in like a month.
Yeah, on Route 10.
It's like, what the
Chester.
heck? How does some things take 9 months and then you see it on John Silver's go up in like a 6 week?
I think it's all about storage. Like he orders all that stuff beforehand. He's got a warehouse with it. It's all lined up. You know, like imagine it's like a pod of all the equipment you need,
Yeah.
and you'll drop it off on site and say like, when you're ready to move in, it's all here.
When you talk to him, see if he wants to come in here.
That would be a good one because he's growing quickly and he's got a lot of construction experience.
Yeah, that'd be good to just chat about like the coordination challenges with just sourcing and different trade contractors in different jurisdictions and the politics that we talked about and how to manage that.
Oh yeah.
Man, yeah, that's a completely
Yeah.
another episode. Albert, right? It's Albert.
Yeah, Albert.
That's a craft.
Craft construction. Yeah.
Yeah, we've worked on a couple of projects. Yeah. But so yeah, man, I appreciate it. We are gonna have to wrap up now.
Sweet.
Because we have come into our hour-long conversation. But thanks, Chris Brown with Benny's.
Thank you for having me on. It was great.
Yeah, man, thank you. Oh, guys, thank you so much. We appreciate that. It has been great chatting with you, man. Having us next to the Hobart.
Yes, sir.
Don't
The
let it
big
turn
one.
on. That's the kiddos. All right, see y'all next time.
All right.